I got a movement alert from the nanny cam and my hair stood on end when I checked what my wife was doing in our living room with her friend.
Married 2.5 years. I, 31M, just got confirmation that my partner, 29F, has been having at the very least an EA, maybe more, with a co-worker of mine who sits on the same floor as me. I'm out of town and I don't know how to handle it. At work, I see co-workers all the time. I'm planning on going to my department head and her HR and see what can be done. But more importantly, I don't know how to confront my partner. I'm planning to say nothing until I return. Some backstory. Since March 21st, things have begun to deteriorate.
We both used the D word in fights we've had and chose to have a separation for most of December. She flew to her home state where she has been staying with friends and avoiding family. I played a role in her having to talk to / see her family, and it's biggest betrayal ever. She does not get along with her family and they are actively working through their issues, but it's not getting anywhere.
I've been instructed that I am not to contact them at all. Easy enough, they all also live in her home state and we are not close. My partner posted something on Instagram and so her friends and her sister saw. Her sister texted me and asked what was going on. I, still bitter from our last fight and upset we were separated in the first place, chose to answer with a very brief exchange which said, "Yes, she's here, are you not with her?" "No, we're separated, that's all I'm going to say." I want to stress that the important piece is that I shared with her sister that we were separated. This person is not to be trusted in general, let alone with that sort of information. Obviously, my partner finds out and justifiably explodes in anger. However, rather than what I assume is a normal level of anger, she views it as the biggest betrayal I could possibly have done to her. This was before Christmas. I say let's talk after Christmas, but I didn't hear from her until almost 3 weeks later. I wanted to give her space, so I waited for her. I think waiting was my second mistake. Because when I do hear from her, it get, "Hi op, I'm ready to come home. Can you please stay with a friend while we figure this out?" I feel blindsided by this and we soon after FaceTime and discuss where I tell her I think it's extreme but she feels different. To keep it short, the summary of the conversation is that I'm also 100% for all the problems in our marriage too. I begged again, 4th time, to get marriage counseling. She says no because she has to work on her mental health first. She's been fighting depression since July. She still hasn't found a therapist. Partner and I used to work at the same company in very different roles. Over the summer she quit but maintained friendships with a lot of people. One in particular I was previously not worried about, in a committed relationship, and she's said some negative things about him in the past. This was all the case until right after she bought her plane ticket. They had started to text all the time. She would say they get cow and his GF are just fighting all the time and I'm being there for him. The day before she flies out she spent 4 hours at his house. Alone. One thing we have always had was free and open iPhones for each other in case we get self-conscious about infidelity, and we freely share with each other, passwords and Face ID and everything. I looked at the conversations between them and I'm rather shocked and concerned. There are one-sided details of the fight, partner and I had emotional support from the guy. I find this concerning, but I say nothing because I'm convinced she doesn't see him that way. Spoiler, I was wrong. She flies back the same day I fly out for a trip, another 9 days apart. We have a shared photo gallery. A few days before our flight, suspicious photos between the two of them pop up. They continued for another 2 days. These photos are not specifically damning but highly suspicious. My friends tell me they don't prove anything concrete, but there's a possibility something is going on. I'm pretty convinced. I'm worried he's going to pick her up from the airport and then they go back to our place, etc., etc. My anxiety is through the roof for 3 days in a row. Our house has a nanny cam for our dogs. We also actively share our location through Google Maps. She is fully aware of these facts. She watches a ton of murder documentaries and this is something we do to have each other's back. The day she flies back I had already landed at my destination and began obsessively checking her location to see when she walked in the house to see if coworker picked her up from the airport via nanny cam. Thankfully she was alone. My anxiety stops for at least that night, but my suspicion continues. This morning we talked on the phone. We agreed that we can be back on speaking terms.
But my texting her sister was a massive betrayal. I had left notes and cards around the house and did other things I knew she would like to show I still care. Now though she's having conflicting feelings since how could I love her and also betray her like that?
We agreed to talk about it once I'm back and I don't need to stay with a friend right away.
I felt much better and I thought most of the day we might be able to make it work. This evening I get a movement alert from the nanny cam and I see she's all dressed up. She goes to some generic restaurant. She's only there for 45 minutes, then heads back.
Check the camera. Did they get the check early and decide dessert is at home? She's alone, but on the phone.
I listen to everything until they hang up and obviously I only get what she says. What I gather is that first it was the co-worker she went to dinner with, second he went to break it off with my partner to go back to his GF. She's very understanding with him and confirms I'll delete all the photos in our chat. She then asked if he can still give her weekly guitar lessons like they talked about doing to stay friends. Then she says I really like you and I like where this was headed, blah blah.
Suspicion confirmed.
She wanted it and he knew better. I don't know how far it went between them, but that's enough for me to know that she's the one betraying the relationship.
So what's next? This just happened and I can't sleep. All advice is welcome.
Edit, I'm certain they did not have sex/PA during said 4 hours alone before she left for her home state. Everyone is telling me I'm naive, but guys you're just gonna have to trust me. Since then I know she only saw him at the restaurant. There is a lot of room for cybersex though.
The line I overheard about the photos needing to be deleted is uncomfortable to think about. Update. Got all the confirmation I needed that there was at minimum an emotional affair on the first day of my 8-day trip away from home.
I posted that night and spent the last week processing. Went through all the stages of grief at least 4 times. Met virtually with my therapist and talked at length with the 2 friends I was staying with. They were more than happy to help me process all of this, which was probably the best case scenario.
I chose to not communicate at all with STBXW.
I did however text her and asked that she pick me up from the airport and told her we're going to need to talk but not until tomorrow. She agreed with no hesitation.
The ride home was friendly but obviously full of tension.
Hung out with the dogs, then grabbed my laptop and headed to bed. One user suggested I check the deleted folder.
I'm glad I did. It's all there. Way less than I thought there would be. Definitely enough though. Partially relieved there wasn't more.
Definitely happy to have had the week to process.
I'm not angry or upset, which is odd to me.
I guess I'm kinda relieved that I can see with my own eyes the betrayal.
Off to bed. I'll update again once I have something more.
Edit, without question I'm planning on divorce. The state we are living in is a no-fault state, which means I don't need to build a case and I don't need a lawyer unless things get messy. I really don't think it will get to that point, but we will soon find out.
We have no property or any meaningful assets.
Her car and mine are basically it, so it's an easy split.
The day I caught my fiancé cheating 2 days before our wedding.
I'm now 31-ish him, but this happened in 2014 when I was 26 and my ex-fiancé was 25, let's call her Barb. We met in college and dated for 3 years prior to our engagement with a wedding date booked by the 4th year. Neither of our parents are well off financially and she was attending grad school, so the financial responsibility fell on me, which totaled $20,000 that was paid in full 4 days prior to the wedding. Leading up to that nightmare of an evening, we had our typical mid-20s relationship issues with bouts of poor communication, excessive drinking on weekends, and an occasional fight over trivial bullcrap. Aside from that, we had a great relationship and spent a ton of time together figuring out post-college life and planning for our future. As I said above, the wedding and reception venue cashed my check 4 days before the wedding and the contract stated this was non-refundable. Over 120 guests were confirmed, a couple dozen from out of state, tuxes and bridesmaid dresses were fitted and paid, and everything was falling into place.
Now let's get to the inevitable crapstorm of events that you're all interested in before I keep rambling.
The night in question was a Friday evening in our new apartment that we'd moved into a few weeks prior,
and we decided to have about a dozen friends over to pregame and head out to the bars in town. Included in this group of friends was my buddy whom I've known since kindergarten, we'll call him Ricky. Barb and I had spent a lot of time with Ricky over the last 3 years, and he was definitely one of my pals, which is generally awesome when you're so gets along with people in your social circle. The night started at a local hookah lounge that was BYOB, so by the time we left there, a 1/5 of Jameson and 30 rack of Yingling were gone and everyone was buzzed. The next 3 hours were spent between 2 to 3 bars that resulted in the entire group devolving into a drunken, belligerent mess. Once the bars closed, most people went home with the exception of myself, Barb, Ricky, and another couple who came back to our apartment for a nightcap. Once back at our place, the couple only lasted another 20 minutes before calling it and making their way home, so I was left with Barb and friggin' Ricky. Earlier in the night at the hookah bar, I noticed Barb checking her phone more than usual, and simultaneously Ricky checking his phone after she would lock the screen. I almost put 2 and 2 together, but why would I worry about them planning anything shady 2 days before I was supposed to marry this girl? Back at my house, I was fairly sober and noticed all the booze was gone, so I was contemplating picking up a couple of 6-packs from a local spot that stays open until 3 a.m. Barb and Ricky were definitely on the liquor and tanked, but there was no reason to suspect anything sketchy would occur if I ran out for 20 minutes. Once in my car and preparing to exit my apartment complex, I got a sinking feeling in my gut that something wasn't right, and it completely freaked me out. So, I called my best bud and he agreed to be picked up and join me on the beer run and accompany me back to the apartment. After grabbing some Bud Heavies and returning home, we walked up to the sliding glass door that led to my living room that had a sectional to the immediate right. We opened the door, took 2 steps inside the apartment, and my ex-fiancé was completely topless and mounted on Mr. Ricky ducking tonsil deep down each other's throats. The amazing part of the situation was neither of them appeared to notice that my buddy and I were 10 feet away watching their sloppy, drunken escapades. After 7 to 10 seconds of attempting to comprehend the current situation, I lost it, dropped the booze, threw her backward off Ricky completely topless, and landed 2 hard right hooks to Ricky's eye and cheek while he was still laying on his back with the most terrified look on his face. To put things in perspective, I am 6 feet 220 inches lbs and have played hockey my entire life. He is 5 feet 6 inches 140 pounds and a runner. Immediately following the attack with my fist, Ricky started snoring, didn't know this was a thing, and was asleep for at least 5 minutes while I was losing my mind over the situation. Without thinking, I called her parents about 10 times until they woke up and demanded they come to pick up their cheating daughter immediately. Their house was only 5 minutes down the road, so they walked in shortly thereafter while I was laying into Barb about her unforgivable, disgusting decision. Her parents frantically walked into me screaming at Barb, Ricky passed out on the couch, and my buddy mediating the situation. The first thing I told everyone was the wedding was ducking off. I demanded the ring back and said I'd rather lose $20,000 than spend the rest of my life with a cheating witch. Her parents spent the next 20 minutes attempting to talk me out of it and occasionally defending Barb's actions, saying things like, "Why can't you forgive her, or isn't it too late to cancel the wedding?" Meanwhile, Ricky woke up and the right side of his face had swollen to the size of a grapefruit and his left eye was completely shut. Kicking him out of the apartment was tough because he was too drunk to drive, so I called his brother that was 20 minutes away and spent that time laying into Barb, Ricky, and her parents. Surprisingly, I was able to stay level-headed enough to express my thoughts in such an extreme state of rage. The few times I've been this upset in the past, my brain felt like it was scrambled and I had a hard time condensing and forming my thoughts into logical statements. Not this time. By the time Ricky's brother picked him up and Barb's parents shuttled her home, I had systematically picked apart any objection, opinion, or plea for reconsideration expressed by everyone in the room. It felt really ducking great. I'm not going to pretend the following months were easy and everything worked out in my favor. 2 months later, the pharma company I worked at decided to lay off my entire division. I had racked up thousands in credit card debt to pay for the wedding, unemployment haunted me for 5 months, and I was diagnosed with major depression. Life was ducked up for a few years and I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but now that I'm 31 things have settled down and I couldn't be happier. Thank you for letting me get this off my chest. Found out wife wanted AP to put a baby in her. I'd been with my wife for almost 4 years and married for 2.5 years.
During this time, we have had several instances of her being unfaithful to me with different men, mostly through texts and Snapchat. While hurtful and disturbing, none of this equaled to a full-on affair. She told me that these instances were to validate herself and she didn't mean to hurt me. Each time she promised she was done doing that kind of thing and would be regretful for months afterwards. I would forgive her because I had faith in her and believed ending our relationship over words and pictures would be a mistake. This all changed in 2019. She started talking to an old coworker she worked with as a teen. She told me about it initially and how he was hitting on her and she was going to stop talking to him. However, she did not stop talking to him and it got out of hand and she was texting him non-stop for days. I was upset because she lied about talking to him, and unlike guys, before she was spending his time talking to him on her phone. This guy also had a six-pack and a huge tool. I've told several of friends if I saw his picture and heard the story I would have laughed because of how ridiculous his body is. I have a dad bod and a semi-attractive face. And my tool is average. She said she didn't do anything wrong initially and we had fights about it for days. Meanwhile, my physical health was declining. I was getting bad heart palpitations. It led to a conversation where I told her if she couldn't stop talking to this person then we couldn't be together. She chose him over me. However, hours later she apologized and we made up. Over the next few months I kept going to my weekly therapy sessions while she kept relapsing and talking to this person. She told me she was relapsing because she was worried about him and thought he had dark thoughts over a divorce he was going through. After the fourth time I caught her lying, I drove off and said I was going to leave her. After this she stopped talking to him cold turkey for about 5 months. During this time he tried contacting her several times and each time she would tell me and would not reply that is until her dad passed away. After her dad passed she started talking to him again and they met up, and after 3 meetups they had love. She initially implied when I found out about the affair that he had offended her, contact without consent, forcing her cloths off. However, later she admitted that was a lie. They had an affair for about 6 weeks until around Christmas time. During the time of the affair, while I was unaware, she was ducking another man. We had several large fights during the affair period. I thought they were related to her dad's passing, unaware of the affair. During these fights she told me I didn't trust her, she wasn't attracted to me anymore, I was socially awkward, my nail biting disgusted her, closeness was boring, and we were not compatible. She also told me on several occasions she wanted to leave me. However, she said she's wanted to leave me a bunch of times in the past and it's more of a nuke she uses rather than actually meaning it. She said I wasn't taking care of myself like I used to. We have both put on weight since meeting. For the record, at least, the love between us was bad mainly because of her. She put little effort in the bedroom and left it up to me to order toys she wanted, and once the toys she wanted were delivered she didn't want to use them ever. I have handcuffs that were used twice, a whip that was used twice, and a bunch of other stuff that is just sitting there. She also only enjoys through BJ and she only lets me go down on her once a month if I'm lucky. My game is lackluster. I'm 6 feet 4 inches and have a hard time finding the right positions. Also, my wife is dry down often there because there is no foreplay. She doesn't seem to understand foreplay is pretty much required for good love in a LTR where the new car smell has worn off. I know she probably wasn't attracted to me, so love isn't exciting to her. After about a month the fights were dying down and stopped. I thought she stopped fighting with me because she wanted me to have a good Christmas and then drop divorce papers in the new year. Turns out her relationship with AP was going in a downward spiral. I found out about the affair a couple days before New Year's. The affair was dying down when I saw she got a notification on Snapchat. I saw AP's name and I knew something was up. I asked her about it and was devastated after finding out she had love with him. I had bad chest pains, threw up every morning for a week, and was having panic attacks at work. My wife was open about her affair, for the most part, and gave me most of the details I asked about, not all at once though. She initially said she didn't have feelings for him and it was only physical. However, I learned later on that she asked to spend the night at his house, and when I asked her about that she said if she did she would have slept in a different room. Okay, whatever you say, honey. I mean, why would you spend the night at someone's house if it was just physical? It doesn't make sense. Despite his body, he is a quicker. She said the love was initially good, NRE if I had to guess, but it ended up becoming shorter and more painful. Her AP was also bad at giving BJ, only way my wife finishes, and it's hard work, believe me, and he was a bad kisser. He also was very rude and wouldn't get her something simple like water after love. I called and talked the AP for a half an hour and he gave me a bag of half-truths and lies. He said that my wife wanted him to put a baby in her. We've been trying for a baby for years with no luck. She claims she never said that. She asked him not to use protection. Wife claims that's a lie and only offered not to use protection for a contact and during period. He also said she was ducking him because life is too short. AP said he could never be with my wife because she is too outgoing and he could never date a cheater. He said he was also lying to her about another woman to keep her away and didn't want to be the cause of a divorce. My wife was pissed that he lied to her, the other woman. While I believe some of what he said, some of it I'm pretty sure he lied about. Because my wife showed me texts they had afterwards where he contradicted himself a bit and they ended on bad terms. The actually physical affair doesn't bother me too much. I told my wife before I would be open to a devil's three-way if she was open about it and shared all the messages with me. She refused, saying that messages are too personal and that it wouldn't work out and we should be monogamous. I don't like being lied to, and her talking to men behind my back makes me feel like I am getting made fun of and judged. Oddly enough, AP suggested a devil's three-way as well and she said I wouldn't have been into it. What gets me in the end is the following. My wife's lying and manipulation during the affair. The AP going through with it knowing I was in a bad condition from just them talking. He didn't know I was going to therapy. The way AP treated my wife, disrespectful and basically using her, knowing full well what she was sacrificing. Knowing that years of me doing all kind of things for my wife. Everything short of dressing her, money management, dog care, errands, managing the household, cooking, and getting her whatever she wanted when she would ask for it. I did this as a way to compensate for her making more money than me. To know that a man can come out of nowhere and steal her away hurts so bad. He didn't have to do anything to win her over besides have a good body. The love stuff she would do with AP and not do for me. My wife showing more concern for AP's health than my own on several occasions and even mocking my heart palpitations. AP lying to me and saying he wanted to be only friends with her when I confronted him when it was just text messages. AP came to my house, she said it was his idea, AP said it was her idea, so who knows? I'm the first LTR my wife has had who hasn't physically or mentally offensive or used her for money. In the aftermath, my wife wants to go to therapy now, wanted to go after she started ducking AP. That's a positive. She's treated me the past month like she did when we first started dating. She lost her job after being written up for more and more things after I found out. My therapist thinks it's related to her guilt. I've always been forgiving. I'm hanging in there in hopes therapy and a lesson learned will keep her from cheating again. I know it's a long shot and many on this subreddit in particular will think I am insane. However, I am willing to give her a final opportunity to mature and learn from the past. I'm not afraid of losing her anymore. I would much prefer her in my life, however if she can't be faithful then I have no business being with her.